If statement, part 4, logical operators. In this lesson, we will use logical operators. You already seen comparison operators like bigger or smaller than, and we also use the mathematical operations like the plus, multiply, divide, minus, etc., etc. The logical operators are used for, you can say, multiple decisions making using ifs, and also can be used in loops. To use them effectively, you need to know the truth table. I will cover it in the next lesson. In this lesson, I only want you to see how the syntax works. The two logical operations that Java has, the main ones, are end-end, which is, well, it's actually called end, but it's written as end-end. And the other one is OR. The simplest calculation, you may say, or decision making you can do with an end-end is check for a range between numbers. We will use ints in Java. Well, number can be represented by ints. For the OR operation, we will check between two values if one of them returns true. Like in our case, it will be a name. If the name is, let's say, Jim or Joe, we will check for it for these two conditions in the same ifs. Let's start with the end part. We will create an int. The int that we will check, we will call it x. We will make it equal 4. Now, in the if part, we will check if x is between the number 2 or 10, which does not include 2 or 10. If x is first bigger than 2, and then we will write the AND operation using the AND character, two AND characters, and AND. And then we will check if x is smaller than 10. If it will be equal to 2 or 10, it will also won't count, only numbers between 2 and 10, which means between 3 to 9 actually. So if all of this expression returns true, we will output in range. And this is one of the, if not the most simplest logical operation you can do with the AND operator. So we check if x is bigger than 2 and smaller than 10. Let's test it. As you can see, 4 is between these two numbers, so it will say in range. Let's say x is equal to 1. It will output nothing in the console. As you can see, there's nothing. Let's say x is 12. You will see nothing again. I want to show you this. Let's output the condition outside the if, so you can see it yourself. We will copy all of this, put it here, and we will surround the end with quotes and use the plus to to increment this. Let's see. Okay, they need to be inside parentheses themselves, each condition, so it will return a boolean. And let's write and instead of these two ends. What we do here is we will print the boolean this will return, and then we will say add to it this string, and then add the other boolean. So it will print them all together. So let's see what it will print. True and false. True and false return false. So if all of this is false, this will not run. So let's make it a number that will return true. Let's say like 5. True and true will return true, so it will print in range. I do not expect you to understand any of this, not at all. I just want you to see how the syntax is used. About booleans, we can do another thing. We can separate each condition to its own test boolean. Let's call it T1, short for test1. I do this for readability purposes, because sometimes you might have very long argument inside the if. So what we want to do is separate it to smaller chunks and put them in variables, because it's more comfortable. Let's copy the other one, and we will put T2 instead. It's the same as it was before, but it's more elegant to see. So if this fails, T1 fails, so you go here. And let's also change this to T1 and T2, so it will be more elegant to look at. It will run the same. I'm just showing you another way to do it. This one is much more comfortable to look at. You can look at each condition separately. X is bigger than 2 and X is smaller than 10. And this is what we do. We check if both conditions are true. If they are, do this. If they're not, don't do anything. It is complex to understand for a beginner. As I said, I don't expect you to understand it. I just want to show you the syntax. Let's show you the syntax for OR. We'll create a string called n, which is short for name. Let's put Jim. Okay, let's test to see if n is equals to Jim. If you remember, this is how you compare strings. You compare the n string to this string, and then we will write OR, and we will check if it equals to another name. Let's say Joe. So here we will, if it passes the test, we will only say hello and plus n, plus the name. So we'll say hello to either Jim or Joe. Let's run it, and it's supposed to say hello Jim and with no space, so let's add a space. And let's also copy this so you can see it. With the OR operation, one side can be false. In this case, the name does not equals Joe, so it's false. And on this side, the name does equals Jim, as you can see. N equals Jim. Jim equals Jim. So it's true. So it will enter here. If we will put like another name, like let's say Bob, it will not output hello Bob because both sides are false. But let's say we'll write Joe. This will also return true. This is very effective because you can test for multiple stuff and not all of them have to be true. So it's an or condition. This or this. If this happens or this happens, do this. Yeah, as you can see, the other side is now true and the first side is false, so N does not equals Jim anymore, so it's false, but N does equals Joe, so it's true. And that's all I wanted to show you in this lesson. So as we said about the OR, let's cover it again. We test for two things again. We can test for more things, but at the same time, like 3 things, but I want to start small with 2. So we test for 2 things, and only one of them has to be true. If you go to the store and they have ice cream, buy at this store. Or if they have milk, buy at this store. If they have anything else, if they don't have any of those 2 products, don't buy it. It's this kind of decision. Only if they have this or this, buy from them. If they have one of the products, buy for them. If they have this product, the first product, buy. If they have the second, buy. If they don't have the 2 of them, don't buy. It's checking for 2 conditions. But only one of them has to be true. In the AND part, both sides must be true for the whole argument to be true and eventually the code executed. So here, let's say with the shop example again, you have to buy milk and eggs. If you only buy milk but no eggs, it will be false. If you buy eggs but not milk, it will be false. You have to buy both products. That's another example from real-life decision-making. A computer is much more limited in decision-making naturally. So to sum it up, here we check for a range between 2 and 10. And here we check if N, the name, is equals to this name or this name. And if it returns true, run this. If this condition, 2 conditions, it's 2 conditions, return true, do this. In the next lesson, I will show you the truth table. You will memorize it by heart in the end. It takes time, but you will know the truth table by heart and you will be able to recite it even if they wake you up in the middle of the night. And that's what I will show you in the next lesson. And that's it for this lesson. If you need help, there's the Q&A. Good luck.